let's talk about Elon Musk for a minute before we go over to the view. So Elon Musk has really been a talk. It hasn't even really been Donald Trump. It's been Elon Musk. It hasn't been JD Vance. It hasn't been all of the legislators. They haven't been holding them accountable. Most people don't even know who these legislators are that's voting for what is happening as far as this spending bill. But everybody is talking about Elon Musk and his influence and impact on what is happening within our federal government. Let's go into it. We're going to go with CNBC to look at it from the business perspective because Elon Musk is a businessman. And let's mine this out, y'all. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications.
Our next guest is going to weigh in on the latest with Elon Musk and Doge. I want to welcome Elon Musk biographer Walter Isaacson. He's an advisory partner with Perella Weinberg, a Tulane University professor, a CNBC contributor, and a legend. All of the above. It's nice to see you, sir.
And a friend of the show.
And a friend of the show, of course.
Young legend.
Young legend.
A former young legend.
Yeah. So, Walter, help us understand. I mean, you spent an extraordinary amount of time with Elon working on the book.
Yeah.
Did you see this coming? I don't think we've really talked to you since all of this has happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely the book shows his frustration with government. It shows him becoming much more of a Trump supporter. It has chapters called The Rabbit Hole, where he really gets into this information ecosystem that he helped create. And he's very eager to put on his superhero's cape and do to the federal government or in the federal government what he did when he arrived at Twitter and got rid of 80% of the employees and is now still running the show there. And I think he do what he did at SpaceX.
So what do you think is possible? Because part of the big question is what can be done with executive orders and what can be done with Congress. By the way, he may very well be influential within Congress, given that the Congress is a Republican. Both Congress
I think
and
he
the
will
Senate.
have Democratic support in Congress for some of what he does, and I think a lot more is possible than some people have been
So when you say
saying.
a lot, put it on the table. I mean, do you think that
I think take the Defense Department.
the big
for
numbers
example.
are Defense Department? Do you think he can actually?
I think he can and will, or they can and will, actually go into the Defense Department and look at things like the F-35 fighter. Is that even something you need in this day and age? Look at why the procurement system is this way. He has people like Steve Davis, who has done this at everything from the Boring Company to Twitter when he first bought Twitter, and people like Antonio Gracias from the outside who are great at saying, you can't have a manufacturing or procurement system this way. And I think he will gut some of that.
And so, but part of the issue is whether he's going to be able to successfully tell Congress people in certain districts that have relied on certain industries, you know what, we're just not doing that anymore, right? It's not just identifying the problem. It's going to be, therefore, it's going to be then sort of persuading people who might be unpersuadable.
Although, is it much more easy to persuade when you can put it on X and post it and have people saying this is wasteful spending?
Oh, I think he has a lot of arrows in his quiver in order to fight off people who are going to resist him. And the biggest one is I think Trump will support him in all of these things. And it'll be very hard to say, no, let's protect the spending and, you know, trying to protect in Alabama where they might be doing some type of Boeing system that's just not working and protect it. But we'll see. I mean, the biggest difference, and this is what you put your finger on, is when he went into Twitter and he did all this, he owned Twitter.
Right.
He does not own the federal government. But if you had to ask me to bet, he'll have a
But you
lot
think
more
defense?
impact.
Do you think he's able to conquer healthcare?
Healthcare, the policies of it are really difficult. But yes, I think he would, if he could, and this is what I don't think he's going to see, just disrupt this whole process of a mix of insurance and employee insurance and mandates or whatever. But I think that will be a place where slashing the regulations will come into play.
Can I just ask, if he...
Let me ask y'all a couple questions after hearing what he has to say. And I'm going to go over into another part of the CNBC where they were asking questions about the influence of Elon Musk. Couple different things, all right? Because a lot of people are whining and complaining. I kind of look at it just like the movies. I think our movies, in a way, is foreshadowing. He is very much Robert Downey Jr. He is Iron Man. And if you watched any of the Iron Man movies or you watched any of the Marvel movies, and you see the arguing and the bickering and the fighting amongst the Marvel characters and the Avengers and all of that stuff, and they disagree with what protecting the world and the globe and Earth looked like. They disagreed with it 100%. But in the end, in a way, Elon Musk was right. But more importantly, forget that part. Look at it from a different lens. Eventually, you grow strong enough, rich enough, and more successful enough and impactful enough to where you become the villain. Because people don't like change. And the minute that you start talking about change, that means you start messing up the money. Whose money is being messed up with? Because they're going to use Elon Musk and going to say, well, he's just getting richer. He's getting richer off of what? Selling a product that people want. And then he negotiated a package that actually gave him success when it comes to the equity in his company. And so he's rich as hell. Cool, whatever. I don't really care. The only thing I care about is whether or not Iron Man is on our side. That was one of the themes in the movies. Is Iron Man on our side? Because if you looked at the federal government, if you looked at any of those movies, if you looked at Iron Man 2, what was the major theme of Iron Man 2? It was that it was defense contractors that was ultimately trying to continue to keep their cash cow with the federal government. And so what they did was they villainized Iron Man, but Iron Man was saying, listen, man, we got world peace. We fixing the federal government. And so what they did was they incentivized another villain to ultimately try to create an environment where they would still have their cash cow in the federal government and funding, right? And so I see this federal government the same way. The thing that they're not going to distract us from, is the fact that this government is bloated. It is bloated. It is so much wasteful spending that we have no visibility into. And I believe that there are so many people that are scared that he's going to kill their cash cow and do the thing that's in the best interest of taxpayers. I believe that they are going to be mad that when Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency with Vivek Ramaswamy, and they go through with that fine-tooth comb and they say, all right, what you got going on? Where the money is spending on this? Why are you continuing to get awarded these contracts? Why are you making billions of dollars? Why is this? Why is that? You know, Trump told a story. I think he did it on Bloomberg before he became president again. It was one of his talks. And he said, listen, this is how I negotiated the plane for the United States of America, Air Force One, the new one that was being built. He said, I went in and I said, why is this costing this amount of money? I'm not giving you this amount of money. Just cancel the contract. And then they came back and said, okay. We'll lower it $1 billion. We'll lower it this. We'll lower it that. And I don't remember exactly what the numbers is. And he was like, so you telling me all I had to do was say that I didn't want it anymore, and they took all of the bloat off of that because they just automatically agreed to whatever the number is that they was given, and they didn't go through it with a fine-tooth comb to figure out if they were overpaying, if it was a good deal, if it made sense, or any of that stuff. And so it's the same thing. Listen, the fastest way to get rich is to get a government contract and then to overbid or overplay your hand or to say, inflate the numbers and say, this is what I want. And because it's not their money, if it's your company, you keep an eye on the bottom line. If it's the taxpayers' money, you just spend it. You don't really care because it's not your money anyway. And as a matter of fact, I got to keep spending it in order to keep getting funding. Because if I don't spend it, they're going to say I don't need it. They're going to say I don't need it. So people are mad because he got influence, and they think that that's going to affect their bag. I think that he absolutely needs to go through and figure out where the inefficiencies are, along with his co-chair, Vivek Ramaswamy, and get that up out of here. Now, it's a lot of people saying, they're going to kill Social Security. Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. But people depend on it for survival, so they're going to be mad. He's going to up in healthcare. If he's running the United States of America, or if he suggests Trump run the United States of America, because that's what great leaders do. Great leaders depend on experts of their field to make better decisions. Let me say it again. Great leaders depend on experts in their field to make great decisions. If accounting is great and they telling me this, all right, we're going to make some adjustments. If engineering is telling me this, I'm going to compare that with what accounting told me, and we're going to make some adjustments. But you cannot keep running the federal government like it's a cash cow, like it's a bank that you don't have to put no money into. Otherwise, it's just going to fail. and we setting our kids up for failure. Let me pivot for a minute because I want to go to another conversation about Elon Musk blocking they saying Elon Musk blocking a spending deal. Let's talk about it.
Joining us right now to discuss the role of Elon Musk in Silicon Valley in a second Trump administration is Tenacity Venture Capital founder Ben Harrison. Good morning to you, Ben. What do you think? Is this the moment? Is this the first real example we've seen of how this might work?
Well, I'm sort of impressed with how much influence Donald Trump and Elon Musk have had before even taking office. But, if they shutdown looks sort of likely right now, and maybe this is a Elon Musk-like move where you sort of shut something down and then see which pieces you have to turn back on.
And well, so this is the question. That approach can work in some contexts in a business like X, right? I mean, I think we saw how actually well that worked in terms of he cut a lot of employees, cut back on even servers and all sorts of things, and sort of waited to see what works and what doesn't. And if it was broke, then he tried to go fix it. The question is whether you think that approach can work in the context of government, in the context of the TSA employees who hopefully are going to help folks through the airports over the next week and a half. But if they're not being paid, how well that's all going to work.
Well, we've had government shutdowns before. I mean, I live in California where we've had it probably more often than the United States has. And things have seemed to carry on. Most of this stuff is almost classic game theory. It gets worked out in the bitter end because, as an example, I do think there were things added onto this bill. I haven't read the whole thing, obviously, at whatever it is, 1,700 pages. But, of course, the lawmakers decided to tack on a raise for themselves and, get their pet projects put in. And I think, if anything, look, if you think of historically about how Trump operates, a lot of bluster and then a deal gets done. I have to imagine that happens here. Is there a delay? Probably. But, things will get worked out. It's just a force. I think that he's a big fan of whacking the big as much as he possibly can until he gets the deal he wants.
And who, you think about
we get there, Libra Justice,
the tail wagging the dog wagging the tail. How much of this do you look and say to yourself, this was really the influence of Elon Musk and X, and that helped push Trump over the top? Or how much do you think that Trump is pushing Elon Musk, and that's pushing this over the top?
So it really does feel like Elon has disproportionate influence, and I'm not convinced that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's nice to have the evidence, and I get that business and government are exceptionally different creatures.
It shouldn't be.
But
that's the problem.
When he cut staffing at X, Twitter, by 70%,
I agree,
and nothing broke. Everybody said, oh, my God, everything's good. Nothing will work. It's all going to be terrible. That was not the case.
And it's funny. You know what's so funny about Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter? I remember when he bought the company, and he overpaid for it, but he didn't care because he'll just make more money. But he wanted to make sure that he controlled or that people weren't censored. And it set a new standard. And as a matter of fact, I see more people than ever before actually using X, formerly known as Twitter, as a source. I see more people going over to the platform than ever before. But I remember when he bought it and he gutted it, right? He walked in with a kitchen sink. And everybody was like, oh my God, it's not going to work. Everything is going to shut down. It's going to be a shell of itself. I can't believe it. The first thing that they did was they fired all of the masseuses. Did you know up to that point that Twitter had never been profitable since its inception? Up to that point, Twitter had never been profitable up to that point. They had never even broken even, not 1 year in there since they had came and went public. Not one time. He got rid of 90%, 80 to 90% of the people that was in there just taking their time and twiddling their thumbs. And I remember going online and seeing people that got fired. Eventually, they was like, you know what? We was just in there chilling anyway. We didn't know. Management didn't know what was going on. We was just making money just to be making money. And we was just quiet quitting. We was just chilling. They weren't doing anything. And so he started to run it more like a company instead of a censorship platform that was preventing conservatives and people, whoever it is that they didn't like. And then I remember he released all of the files that showed that they were censoring certain people, and he brought everybody back. And then he made it open for anybody to say what they wanted to say when they wanted to say it. And everybody got mad at it. But guess what? It is a powerhouse today. He is a genius. And if we had our federal government that operated the same way, SpaceX, now they landing rockets backward and they got super innovation and they got less layers of management and a bunch of people stealing a bunch of money out of it. So people are always going to complain as though they know how a company runs. But he is really great with looking at things from a business perspective. And we need to look at the government from a business perspective. It is not a handout. This is real people's money that y'all paying into.
I think that was quite informative. And I think when Trump looks at what Elon's been able to achieve, he thinks, hey, can we apply some of this to government? And I do think, like last time you had me on, we talked about sort of Trump versus Kamala and how that could play out. And what I said I was super excited about is if this came to pass, watching what Doge is able to do. We haven't seen an attack on government overspending and massive regulatory overreach since Reaganomics. And if you look back to Reagan, and many of the policies are exactly the same that are being proposed, I mean, that was a tremendous boost to GDP. Obviously, taxes came down, unemployment went down, inflation went down. We did grow the deficit tremendously, but he was fighting a Cold War, and we're not in that same situation. So, I think, there'll be some pain along the way, but I think net will end up a better and stronger country with a more functional government that's thinner and hopefully more able to serve the purpose it was intended for.
That's one of the things that we've always asked for is smaller government. Very few people actually execute on that. We don't see any smaller government, no smaller spending, but we see people whining all day, every day.